What are the risks? And it turns out that there's a whole bunch of discount factors and that they are standard discount factors. These are the discount factors: fame, differentiation, pricing model, financial rigor, scalability, and succession team.
Welcome back to the Scaling Fast Lane. I'm Valerie Booth, your guide through the intricacies of agency growth. In today's episode, we tackle a crucial aspect of agency ownership, the major discount factor that could impact your agency's value when it's time to sell. Join us as Felix Velarde sheds light on these important factors, providing insights for agency owners navigating the path to exit. Let's dive in.
I'm slightly contrary. Tom and I work so well together because we're completely different. And so I thought I'd be as different as I possibly could be and start at the end. And you'll see why. It's funny, I ran agencies. Well, I started my first agency completely by accident in 1994, just after the World Wide Web got switched on. So I think it was the fifth web design company in the world. And I started my first agency because nobody would give me a job. And I had I think by the time I started my first agency, I had never actually had a job that I hadn't been fired from. And so, I'm a lapsed bartender by trade. And so I started my first agency. I had bright blue hair. I then founded and ran a series of agencies across 20 years and 6 agencies that I founded. I founded one of the world's first SEO companies in 1996. We were doing reciprocal links campaigns for Alta Vista and Hotbot. Started one of the first interactive TV companies, agencies, and I started the world's first ECRM agency, doing properly live segmented email marketing in 2000. So I had this long career of screwing up everything that you can screw up in founding and managing and running agencies. The only thing that I was consistently good at was being ahead of the curve. I can see into the future to some degree. And I was great at that, and I was really good at convincing people to come along for the ride. But I was hopeless at running a business. And so all of the mistakes that you have made over the last few years of running your own businesses, building your companies, I have made those mistakes, and I am so bad at it that I've made those mistakes over and over and over and over again. And eventually I started learning from some of these mistakes. And so after 20 years as an agency CEO, no longer with blue hair or really hair, I found myself as CEO of an agency group, and we did a virtual roll-up of 12 agencies, and I ran that for a couple of years. But by that time, my career as an agency leader and founder was grinding to a halt. Not because I wasn't successful. In fact, by then I was becoming very successful. I'd cracked the formula for how you scaled and managed an agency. But because I'd had so much frustration, so many knocks, and so much stress, I decided I couldn't really live with it anymore. I lost the sparkle. You know the spark that you have when you start your agency and you're growing it, and it's exhilarating, right? And it's this ride that you're on, and you're going to change the world and have a yacht or whatever it is, right? And after you hit that bloody ceiling for the whatever it is, 15th or 18th time, after the 450th time that somebody says, "Boss, can I have 5 minutes?" That phrase that has never signaled anything good in the history of history. It wears you down. It's your responsibility. I remember we had a really awful year one time, and I wanted to give everybody on the team a Christmas bonus. So my business partner and I decided to top up our mortgages, and we gave out these Christmas bonuses literally by selling bits of our houses, and watched everybody opening their thing at the Christmas thing and then getting barrage of complaints that it wasn't as good as the previous year, right? It's soul destroying. Running an agency. Why would any sane human being do it? By the time I ended my career as an agency owner and founder, I then decided that I was never going to work again. So I went to every music festival I'd ever heard of. I went to Burning Man. I stayed at Burning Man more or less for 6 weeks, enjoying the afterglow. And then, of course, after about 9 months of this retirement, decided that I needed to get back into doing something. And so what I decided to do was to start a program called 2Y3X. And 2Y3X does what it says on the tin. It's a 2-year program that triples your revenue. And the reason I wanted to create this program was because I looked around and there are so many former agency owners giving people advice. Oh, when this situation happened to me, this is what I did. And oh, look, I got grey hair and therefore you ought to listen to my wisdom. And there was never any formula. Now, agencies, as Tom alluded to this morning, J. Walter Thompson was founded in like 1870 or 1880 something, right? We've been doing this stuff for 150 years. Why should entrepreneurs like us have to learn it all by trial and error when this is all prior art? All of this management and scaling and how to delegate and how to get people on board. We know how to do this stuff. This knowledge exists. It's widely available in all the books that we read, like Good to Great and everything by Pat Lencioni and so on. Vern Harnish's Scaling Up and all these magical books. And yet we don't do it. We can't find a mechanism for applying this knowledge that already exists. So 2y3x became a framework for how do you apply all of this prior art, this knowledge that already exists. Because you shouldn't have to do it all. You shouldn't have to spend your career spending 90% of your time trying and failing at things just so that you can have a sense of achievement that finally at the end of it you caught up with everybody who came up before you. Surely we should be running agencies because we want to do better comms. We want to do magic for our clients because we have a service mentality or because we think that marketing could be done in a more humane, progressive way. Surely we should be out there changing the world, not reinventing the same fucking wheel. So I came up with this framework. And 2y3x became really, really successful. It became bomb-proof, reliable. Every single company, agency that came through the program up until COVID at least doubled its revenue in the 3 years. Some of them tripled. And then COVID came along and screwed up our stats. But hey-ho, we're back on track. And that program is very small. It's very, very careful about the values of the people that we bring into the program. Very careful about our own values. I'll talk about this a lot this week. It's now worldwide, which is fascinating. And I no longer run it because it turns out that one of the reasons that I was so stressed running agencies was because I was the founder, I gave myself the job of running the agencies. And I'm not that good an MD. I'm a great arm waver. I'm a great guy who gets up on stage and enthuses people, but actually managing people, turns out I was crap at that. Anyway, so now I have an amazing woman called Mo Lishamwa who runs 2y3x. And so I decided once I'd got everybody else turning this thing into a reliable machine, I would write a book for the young blue-haired me. And so Scale of Speed, which you should all have a copy of. If you don't, there's copies over there. Help yourself. It's the manual for the 2y3x program with almost absolutely everything about how to run the program for yourself in the book. It's the manual. Because I didn't want it to be a book that, you read and you say, well, that sounds great, but it's mainly hot or warm air. And therefore, it's not there as a sales tool. It literally is there for the young entrepreneur that I was, who didn't know what he was doing and wanted somebody to say, listen, if you do it this way, this will work. But I'm also going to talk about the end from the point of view of many of the people in this room, and I know not all, but many of you are here because at some point you want to create an exit for yourselves. Whether that's an exit because you want to make a ton of money so that you can solve the Great Pacific Garbage Patch problem, or because you want to retire, or because you want to do something else, or because you want to leave your business in great hands, or all of the above. And it turns out that if you think about your agency at that moment of exit, you'll discover that your agency has some flaws. And when I was building my agencies, I had some really interesting experiences. And I actually have a talk that I'm going to do later today about some of those exit experiences from my 6 agencies. And also tomorrow I'm interviewing a lovely man called Tim Deason about his experience exiting at the end of the 2y3x program. But the thing that I found when I was selling my agencies was that on paper they were really valuable. Great profit, great client. They were famous. They were, we won awards. And buyers would come along and say, hey, shiny, sparkly agency, we want to buy you and add you to our portfolio. And we'd say, great, this is going to make us, we're going to have 2 yachts. And then they'd say, okie dokie, let's start looking into your agency. Let's look under the hood. And then they'd start talking about discount factors. And so my first talk of the next couple of days is about discount factors. And then I'm going to end this session in about, half an hour with an exercise where I want you to start articulating what your end goals are. And so you'll see there's bits of paper on your desk. And we'll use that as a tool so that you can capture some outcomes, the end, before we really get into the meat of the next couple of days of talks and lectures and interviews. How's that sound? So this is the central framework for the 2Y3X program. It's called a strategy map. It's stolen shamelessly from Capgemini, who created something called a transformation map, which is a 5-year framework for implementing ERPs. So there's SAP or Microsoft or whatever in 2,000-person organizations. And Capgemini perfected this after stealing it shamelessly from Kaplan and Norton, who wrote a book called Balanced Scorecard, which is too complicated for almost everybody that I've ever met to actually follow and implement. So because I was trying to create something that even I would be able to understand in running my own agency, I've taken those great grand ideas and simplified them, and then distilled them a bit more to this framework. And this framework is a 3-year framework. And the way that it works is really interesting. We start at the end, we figure out what our goals are. And then what we do is we figure out what's got to be going on in that 3rd year in order for those goals to be true, right? So, for example, if you wanted you wanted to make $10 million out of the sale of your agency, and you've got an earn-out, well, that's going to demand a certain amount of profit in year 3, and a certain amount of profit in year 2, and a certain amount of profit in year 1. So we can start at the end, we can work our way backwards. If we want to leave, then in year 3, somebody else has got to be running the company successfully. So successfully, the buyer will allow you to leave. Well, if you've got somebody else running the company in year 3, what's happening in year 2? Yeah, you need to identify the people who are running the company. Year 1, you might need to recruit that person who's going to be the next version of you when you sell, and so on. So really, really simple, right? Start at the end and work your way backwards. Now, because I'm kind of simplistic and because I'm working with teams of people within the agency who are potentially quite junior, and I'll explain that I'm going to talk about Growth Lab team selection in detail later. I wanted to make it really, really easy for people to focus on if this is happening in year 3, what's happening in year 2. So I broke it down into kind of practice areas: people, sales and marketing, clients, processes, corporate financial stuff. By the time you are leaving, you're going to need your processes to be integrated with the buyer's processes, or at least compatible with whoever the buyer is going to be. You're going to need processes for evaluating staff and managing them. You're going to need processes for hiring new staff. If you're going to be 3 times bigger at this point, you're going to be hiring a ton of people, right? And you can no longer do that by gut feel. What Jeff Smart calls the woo-woo method of hiring. So we need some processes. And this really simplistic way of describing the 2Y3X program is we start at the end with some goals, we work our way backwards until we have a bunch of stuff that we want to do in year 1, and then we turn that into a plan of action. Now, there's a scientist called Dr. Edwin Locke, who for the last 45 years or so has been testing a theory called goal-setting theory, which basically says the more challenging the goal that you set, the more likely you are to achieve it, which seems counterintuitive. But his thesis is, if you set a reasonable goal, 20% growth this year, year on year. I don't know what you guys and girls set as your own goals, but most people tend to set reasonable-ish goals. And the problem with a reasonable goal is that you look at that and you say, okay, well, we probably need to hire a couple more people and work a bit harder on sales, and we need to roll our sleeves up and work a bit harder. And the problem with that is you're already working bloody hard. Yeah? And if the wind blows the wrong way, or it's too hot, or somebody invades somewhere wrong, or whatever it is, your growth is actually too close to a little bit of shrinkage that means you stagnate. And what happens then is you get victim of this thing called feast and famine, which, how many of you are familiar with feast and famine? And you can see quite a lot of nodding, right? We've got too much business. Let's slow down on pitching. And then, oh shit, we haven't got any business at all. Let's do loads of marketing. Oh, well, we've got loads of pitches now. Let's stop the marketing and focus on the pitching. Oh, and by the way, that client's not very happy. But we won a load of pitches. That's great. Now let's onboard them. Oh, and yeah. And it's soul destroying. This smooths it out. So I just want to focus right on this end point here, this maximum earnout. The founder leaves. By and large, what happens when you sell your agency is that either now or in 3 years' time when you've completed your earnout, you'll leave. In the UK, 60% of agency founders fail to complete their earnout. Not from a financial point of view, but because we're entrepreneurs. When was the last time you actually wanted a boss to report to? I mean, really? Yeah? I had blue hair. I kind of wanted a job, but my subconscious was going, no way. So maximum earnout, maximum price, maximum value. You leave, and we want the buyer to be happy with the deal. I can't tell you how many times I have sold agencies where I wasn't happy, where the buyer wasn't happy, where half of the staff left, and I got half the money I thought I was going to get because I wasn't prepared properly. And preparation, it turns out, can be easily addressed by understanding what the buyer wants when they're looking at your agency, what the buyer wants when they're looking to acquire a company. And this stuff will apply when you are buying agencies too, as much as it does when somebody's buying you or you are selling your agency to them. If we start at the end, year 3 focus has got to be on exit. Now, I've got to say something about this focus on exit bit. You will hands-on, with one or two exceptions that I know about, most of you are hands-on managing your business, working with clients, managing your teams, doing all the stuff, right? If you want to sell your agency, it is the world's most seductive set of processes. You know how you will love, when you start your agency, the exhilaration of going out and winning a new client and doing the pitches, right? That I'm creating a pitch and you're going out and you get the buzz you get from winning a new client, right? That you no longer quite get. You're probably at the stage where you do your pitch, you win the client, you come back to the office, you say, yay, let's crack open the champagne, but in your head you're going, next, right? This process of selling your agency is so seductive because it's a much bigger selling thing. You are going out there, you are selling the thing that you have created. It's amazing. You have all of these brokers and lawyers and advisors and tax people and so on around you saying, this is amazing, and you are going to walk away with $3 million or $10 million or whatever it is. It's this wonderful process. And guess what happens? You stop doing your job because you are now sucked into this wonderful process. And when you stop doing your job, you stop winning clients and your team stops being so motivated. And by the time you sell, the buyer's going to say, okay, well, we now need to re-engage the buyer, but also we're going to discount the price because what was that trajectory is now that trajectory. So you don't get what you wanted or thought you were going to get. And so you're disheartened before you even walk through the new door and discover that you've got a boss who wants you to present a spreadsheet to them every 10 minutes. So it's all negative. So you need to plan for this. So you probably need a new managing director the year before that. You probably need to identify your succession team if you haven't already got it. How many people have got their succession team in place? Hands up. 1, 2. You're kind of like, half, right, okay, so 2. So I would say this, wouldn't I? So, if you're going to go for this process and go through this process, you need some process. You need some way of driving towards your end goal, whether it's doing 2y3x or EOS or scaling up or whatever it is. You need some kind of mechanism to hold your hands while you go through the process. By the time you've actually filled this thing in, it's quite complicated. And there's a whole ton of stuff. And all of the stuff that you probably need to do in year one, get rid of your unprofitable clients, do client satisfaction surveys, pictures of this all the way through the book, by the way, with instructions. Sorting out your KPIs and making certain that you're nailed on. All of these things, these become tasks. And so what we do is we assemble a team within the business, not the senior management team, by the way. The senior management team's job is to keep the wheels on, keep the business doing what it does right now really well. So we assembled a new team, Growth Lab team, the superstars, the people who are, one day they're going to be running their own agency, the people who are brilliant at carrying people along or thinking critically or process or whatever it is, right? Bunch of people from within the agency. And you get them to design this. And that's the secret. Is you get them to say, well, what should the goals be? What should our vision goal be? What should our culture goal be? If the boss has already said that this is the magic number. And then that team builds this out. And because that team has built it out, you solve the problem of you going in and telling everybody what to do and trying to delegate it. To which you get what? Resistance, right? Oh, we've got a new way of doing things. We're going to change all of our process. No, but this client won't let you. We can't do it like that because this is the way that we've always done it and it works, right? You get resistance to change. We're all resistant to change. But if you get the people in the agency who are going to be affected by the change to design the change, by and large, you can't get out of the way fast enough for that change to happen. And your job is then managing the pace of change, not trying to force the pace of change. It's pull rather than push. And it's amazing and it's magic and it works because it's not you. You stop being the bottleneck. And we are all the bottleneck. And we all have to fight to get ourselves out of the way of our teams who can create and manage, produce transformational change, if only we give them permission to do so. So people aren't looking for direction. You get these endless mantras from the business management books that say, people want to know what they're supposed to be doing, right? They don't. They want permission to do things better. And so the beauty of what I do for a living is I ask people to envisage a better version, the next version, the 3 times or 5 times bigger version of the agency that they've got now, the better processes, that what would it look like if we only hired A players? What would we have to change to only hire A players? And then I give them the permission to make those changes, one little step at a time. That's revolutionary. I want to haul us back to the original sort of starting point for this, which is what happens when we go for an exit. And I want to get you into, for a moment, I know Peter and Tom are going to take you way back there over the course of the next couple of days and really put you in the mind of a buyer of the M&A process and teach you how to do M&A so that you are sophisticated both from the inside and from the outside. But I'm just going to give you one little, glimpse of why a buyer might want to buy your agency. And when I first found this out, after sale number 3 of my own agencies, I was gobsmacked. Say you're doing $500,000 EBIT, and frankly, I don't care whether it's EBIT, net profit, operating profit, EBIT, whatever you call it, right? Say you're doing $500,000, and your multiple is 2 times your $500,000, gives you a valuation of $1 million. It's straightforward maths. And the more profit you make. When you're making $1 million, you might get a multiple of 3. Now, by extension, they, the buyer, is much bigger than you. They've got $10 million of EBIT, and therefore their multiple is much higher. It's 10 times. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to buy them, they'd have to pay $100 million, right? I mean, these are exaggerated numbers, but it's useful. And so all that makes sense. So you're sort of sitting there thinking, oh, well, I want to get to $1 million of EBIT because then I'll have a higher multiple and I'll be chasing these people. And one day I might be able to achieve that number, right? Now, the reason that I, as a buyer, and we buy agencies, right? We don't only have the book and run 2y3x and practice what we preach. We buy agencies. Because they're worth 10x, when they add your 500K to their profit, it's 10x 500K. To the buyer, your $1 million worth of business is worth $5 million the day the transaction closes. Isn't that nuts? And then they dicker on price. And you think, what? And there's a whole bunch of reasons for this. And the biggest reason is you are risky. Your business is tiny compared to theirs. Their business is nice and solid, and if bits fall off it, nothing's going to happen. If your business is tiny and that bit falls off it, your business might not be worth anything tomorrow. You're risky because you're small by comparison to your buyer. And those risks are worth addressing. They're worth articulating, because when I discovered this, because it was one of those, like common sense only ever comes from your partner. I mean, your spouse or your mum. Common sense doesn't seem to be intrinsic, at least not to me. I had to be shown this rather than realize it. I started thinking, okay, what are the risks? And it turns out that there's a whole bunch of discount factors, and that they are standard discount factors. And one of them is, what happens if a bit falls off your business, right? What happens if, how many of you have got client that accounts for more than 30% of revenue? 2 of you do, right? 40%? Nearly. That's scary, isn't it? Right? So let's say I've managed to get my EBIT up to $1 million, right? I've got multiple of 3 times $1 million. That's a $3 million valuation. Now, $3 million is not to be sneezed at, right? $3 million. Actually, I might consider selling, because then I can start 3 more businesses and I can have another stage. If your 40% client leaves, it's not 3 times $1 million equals 3 million value. It's 3 times 600,000, because you've just lost 400,000, right? And that knocks your value down to 1.8 million from 3 million. And if I'm the buyer and I'm saying, well, actually, you're now 600K EBIT, that's not worth a multiple of 3. That's only worth a multiple of 2 to me, because it's even riskier than it was before. Suddenly you're down to 1.2 million value, right? That's 60% price reduction. And you haven't even lost the client yet. It's just me saying to you, we don't know whether you're going to lose that biggest client, so we're going to discount it from your calculations. And if you keep it, we'll add it back. But we'll see. We'll test that after a couple of years. And suddenly you're not getting your 3 million new life, moving to wherever it is that has a better climate, one way or the other. It's a fundamental change. So discount factor number 1, client concentration. Anything over about 25%, I will discount your value. Sometimes might go down to 20%. If you've got one client that accounts for 20% of your business, I'll start sniffing around the contracts and thinking, what is the real risk of this client going elsewhere, or not renewing, or you screwing up, or them not liking you having a new owner? Because some clients don't want you to join a big group, because they know that they're just going to get cross-sold all of the other agencies in the group, right? And they're perfectly happy with the media agency and the branding agency and the SEO company, and you are just one, they like independent, right? That's a risk. So here they are. These are the discount factors that as a small agency, you need to address. Fame, differentiation, pricing model, financial rigor, which to me is spelt wrong, by the way, but y'all's mileage may vary. Scalability. Scalability is really important. I'll come back to it in a second. And succession team. Because as I said before, and as I'm going to talk about later on when I go through some horror stories of what happens when you sell your agency, you're going to leave. And if you leave tomorrow, how safe is my investment in your agency? Fame. If I don't already know who you are and what you stand for and why you are great, you trying to sell to me is a cold sale. And that means you're going to get the lowest price. If I don't know what your brand is already, you are going to be pushing a sale at me rather than me wanting your brand because it's desirable, because I already know that I need it in my portfolio, because I already believe that you're going to win new clients. If I, as a buyer, haven't heard of you, have clients heard of you? What's your sales process like if you're not famous? Fame is really important. Fame coming from very clear proposition, crystal clear proposition. I need to know exactly what you do and who you do it for and why clients buy your services. We do a lot of proposition work. We did one, I did one a few years ago for an agency, and their proposition at the end of the exercise was, we make tired brands famous again, right? Beautiful proposition. Doesn't tell you what they actually do, tells you what you as the buyer get. Another, branding future unicorns, target tech startups. Great, crystal clear proposition. Understand it from a mile off, right? I know that tech startups will put them on the short list just for their proposition without even looking at the work. And that's what you want, is a crystal clear proposition. Differentiation. Will you actually attract clients? Why will they come to you? What's better about you than your competitors down the road? Competitive differentiation was defined by Janie Smith as what's different about you as compared to your competitors in the eyes of your customers. And if you can't answer that question, your buyer won't be interested. Pricing models. I kind of cringe-worthy moment. At the beginning of my career, I had what was at the time the world's most awarded digital agency. And I was called in to see Abbott Mead Vickers in London. And I met the CEO, a guy called Andrew Robertson. And he said, Felix, your work is incredible. Your agency is brilliant. You're winning all of the awards and beating us to the awards. How do you make your money? And I said, by doing great work and winning a load of awards. And I had no idea whether we made money. I need to know as a buyer that you know where your money comes from and that you know where the risks are to that money and that you know how your pricing models fit with buyers, your clients' expectations, right? I need to know that you're on top of it. And that includes an understanding of what your utilization looks like and your recovery rates look like and which clients are profitable and which ones you overservice and why. And whether that's built into your profit levels or your pipelines. Financial rigor. You being the bookkeeper or you just having a bookkeeper is not good enough. As a buyer, I need to know your numbers are bomb-proof because if they're not perfect, there is risk. And if there is risk, I am going to discount your price. If I think that your numbers may be 10% off, well, that's 10% off your value. If I've got to put in place the finance team to tidy it all up and sort out your AR and so on, and switch you from cash-based to accruals, it's going to cost me a ton of money, and I don't know what I'm going to uncover, and therefore it's a huge risk. And actually, probably, if there's no financial rigor, I will walk away from a deal rather than get involved. It's pointless. It's such a big risk that I probably won't deal at all. Scalability. Here's the grand illusion. We think we are selling what we have built. We think that we are selling our client book and our great work and our awards and the people that we've had and our growth rate, and we are not. The buyer is buying your future. The buyer is buying what is going to happen in the next 3 or 5 years. They're buying your future trajectory, your future ability to win clients, to attract great people, to win awards, to stay ahead of the curve when AI comes along and screws up your entire market, right? They're buying your future. They're not buying your past. Your past is an okay indicator of your future potential. It's a bit like those, buy our shares kind of ads. These are people buying your shares. And a succession team. And I think succession team is the most important piece here. And that comes from having an amazing culture. And it comes from being able to let go, to peel your fingers off all of the processes, peel you away from the wonderful feeling that you get knowing all of the answers. And the way to do that is to use a framework like the strategy map and to give a team of people in your business the chance to design your future and then to execute each of the steps that will take you into your future. Because then that will make you redundant. And if you are redundant, you can spend time being seduced by the sale process or even going out and buying other agencies and scaling that way. Because wouldn't it be amazing if your team was the one doing the scaling of your agency, of doing the future strategy, of making you better, of winning better clients and making your clients happier? Wouldn't it be amazing if they were the ones doing that? And so this book and this framework and so on is designed around facilitating the people in your business, giving them permission to create a better future. You have done the entrepreneur's job. The entrepreneur's job is to get the bloody thing off the ground and make it survive and win its first few clients. The entrepreneur's job is not to then manage the business and to scale the business. That's the job of the people that you hire. So we get them to define this amazing 3-year plan of action, what first-year roadmap. And what I want to finish on is I want you to think about right now the end. So let's assume that the end point here is you've earned a ton of money. You've left happily the business in great hands with a great new buyer who is happy with the business that they bought from you. And when we're doing goal setting, these are the 3 parameters. Your target financial number, a culture goal, and a vision goal. The reason that we have these 2 extra things on top of the financial thing is because if you just focused on the numbers, boy, there are easier ways of making millions. You'd all have OnlyFans pages. So we set culture to define what kind of business we want to be. We set vision because we want to know whether we are doing brilliant work, whether we are the top of our market or our niche or our location, right? Whether we're award-winning, being recognized for being the best of the best of the best, or just the greatest innovators, or the most down-to-earth. Whatever our vision is for what our agency is seen to be, it's really important. Culture. When you ask your team what kind of culture they're going to put in this slot here, they're going to say, we want this to be an amazing place to work. We want it to be filled with superstars. We want to have colleagues that we love. We want to be doing brilliant work for clients that we love. We want everybody to share values. We don't want any toxic people. We do want to be educated. We want training. These are great. These go into the ingredients in the strategy map, right? How do you measure culture as an outcome? Well, because you need a goal. It's easy to know what the goal is here. Did you hit your EBIT number or not? Culture, you might want something like staff net promoter score, or staff satisfaction score, or Ad Age best places to work, or some other signifier of great culture. 300 applicants for every job. I don't know. You make it up. And vision is, where do we want to be? What kind of agency do we want to be? So what I want you to do now, here's some examples, by the way. 4 million EBIT, 9.5 staff satisfaction score, and top 3 agency in my niche. What I would like you to do now, please, is create the beginning for the next couple of days. And what I mean by that is, take a look at that piece of paper in front of you. Get a fresh copy if you've already pre-gamed the whole damn thing. And look at the yellow box. And I would like each of you to fill in. I have no idea how to go backwards on this thing, by the way. I would like each of you to fill in your 3-year EBIT number. Thank you. Where you want your culture to be, and your vision for what kind of agency you want to be, right? It doesn't have to be pithy or encapsulated in, the simple kind of simplistic scores I've got here. You can write it in narrative, but I would like you to write it down on this sheet of paper right now, and you have 8 minutes to do it in. Is that okay? And in fact, if we finish within 5 minutes, we'll take some questions at the end.
To get to this order.
Will you grab her mic?
Oh yeah. Well, I forgot. What did you?
Magic, thank you.
So for Unicorn Traffic, put 15 million in EBIT. For our culture, I put basically just like a culture of attracting just A+ rock star players only that just thrive and just want to be there, super competitive. And then for Vision, number 1 performance marketing agency in the US.
Wow, cool. I like a bit of ambition. Right, who's next? You got the mic? Go for it.
Absolutely. So Brett Curry, OMG Commerce, 1 year EBITDA goal is 2 million. So that's what we're trying to get to. I think we hit that run rate by the end of the year. So 2 million EBITDA next year, 4 million in EBITDA in 3 years, although now after hitting max, maybe I'm shooting too low. So I got to think about that a little bit. Our culture, and we've already kind of defined this. I think our culture is pretty good. We've won best workplaces for our region 2 years in a row. Number 1 best workplace for our region in Missouri, and we made an Inc. list 3 years. But we talk about accelerating team and client growth. So we want growth-minded team members, and we create an environment where we're accelerating that growth. So people that are already growing, brands are already growing, we're accelerating that growth. And then vision, this is a little fuzzy, but I think it works. We want to be the most trusted, most loved agency that feels like an in-house team. We hear that a lot, that the clients want, some clients are going like in-house team. We want to feel like an in-house team, but bring the expertise, the knowledge, the trust that an agency brings. And so.
Brilliant, thank you. Griffin? No two ways about it. You're going to have to go out and buy some of that profit. So understanding M&A, going through the stuff that you're going to be talking about for the next few days, is going to be critical to that journey. But I have a friend who sadly passed away a few months ago, who started with a kidney dialysis center, and decided that having 2 wasn't ambitious enough. And in 12 years, he turned Diavirum into the world's largest supplier of dialysis, with offices in something like 20% of the countries on Earth. Amazing man called Doug Anderson. Grayson.
And for our culture goal, I put it at a 24-month both exit rates. So exit rate for every company we acquire, and a 24-month employee turnaround time. It's both on big piece of it because the employee turnaround time will match the companies we bring in. So it'll help a lot with the culture of the people who stick around longer and the companies that come in and exit. And then for the vision of how we hold the company long term, I want it to be the exit engine as an internal term we use a lot. And the exit engine is that companies will come to us specifically for that in mind of internally helping founders reach their dream exit is our mantra. So
Brilliant.
it's a little bit how we do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for sharing that. I know that everybody else has now filled theirs in. What I'm going to ask is that, Valerie, if you could organize that we get a copy of everybody's goals. Fantastic. This is amazing having a team around you who is way ahead of where you're at. Isn't it amazing? But that's the beginning. This is the beginning, right? This is the beginning of your journey. And it's going to be really exciting if you get it right. It's going to be even more exciting and even less stressful if you get the people in your business to drive your business. So we're going to be talking a lot about that, as well as the mechanics of M&A and exit planning and all of the strategic frameworks that we use when we're acquiring agencies and buying other agencies and selling our agencies. We're going to share all of that with you over the course of the next couple of days. Thank you very much indeed for being here and for listening. Appreciate it. We'll see you all later. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Scaling Fastlane podcast. If you enjoy this content and are looking for a more immersive experience, join us at our next Scale at Speed live event. It's packed with dynamic content, expert insights, and a room full of like-minded agency leaders who are also on a scaling journey. Come join us in person. Visit scaleatspeedlive.com to secure your spot today. We can't wait to see you there.